Hello again, everybody. It's again time for another edition of Pro Wrestling Inside and Out, and we are focusing on Mid-South Wrestling 1984. It's pretty much a celebration of what a tremendous year that is, and it was led, of course, by superstar Bill Dundee was the creative forces behind the Mid-South Wrestling. I would like to welcome everybody to come in. If you have any questions or comments, please come on in. Please come on in, and we'll try to answer as much of those as possible. Coming up, ladies and gentlemen, as we left last time, first of all, Bill Dundee was unable to be with us tonight. Hopefully he'll be with us in coming weeks. But as we left, the Midnight Express was still on the chase for the Mid-South Tag Team Championship held by Magnum TA and Wrestling 2. The Junkyard Dogs still having problems with Nikolai Volkov and Crusher Darso, which will turn into Crusher Khrushchev in weeks to come. And Terry Taylor seems to be, if anything or any excitement is going on, Terry Taylor's right in the middle of it. That and then Masao Ito and that claw and the kick to the throat, still working that, still getting it ready because the payoff's about to come and in the show before. Today, we're going to be focusing on February of 1984. Things, like I said, are beginning to heat up. And right now, the Rock and Roll Express are still being shown in the video form. And as Bill said last week, he wanted to use this more so than just showing a wrestling match or a video, more as like a trailer in a movie. And you'll see, if you watch the show, you'll see this technique pays off big time. I mean, absolutely big time on that. On the shows, and you'll see as time goes by, the crowds just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The February the 2nd show starts off with the Mid-South Television Tournament. This is going to spotlight many of the stars wrestling against each other. It's for the Mid-South Television Championship plus $10,000. They show the brackets. Bill Watts is explaining about the Mid-South Television titles, and apparently I can't find where it happened, but apparently the Louisiana State Championships and the Mississippi titles have seemingly disappeared. I'll try to get to the bottom exactly what happened there. I want to ask Bill that question, if he was responsible for maybe their retiring those championships. And maybe when we get him back on, we'll find out. The first part of it, the coal miner's glove, has become a big thing in the Mid-South, especially dealing with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Duggan and Darso had a tremendous match in Tulsa at the fairgrounds, a coal miner's glove match. And this, if you haven't ever seen one, and lots of times in wrestling today, you haven't seen it because they don't show these kind of things. We were talking about it just last night, that we don't have any Russian chain matches and these kind of things. Of course, today, why should they have that when there's no rules in the first place? But the coal miner's glove was a glove that come almost down to the forearm, and the knuckles were steel. Some places had spikes in them, and they would put this glove up on top of a pole, and the first man to it would be able to use it. Well, in this match, Crusher Darso and Jim Duggan climb. Duggan gets to the top of the pole, gets the glove, wins the match, and here comes Darso's comrade and Nikolai Volkov. They double up on, hey, Turbo Ted, good to see you. Good to see you. And they double up on Jim Duggan, taking the coal miner's glove, which has been Duggan's trademark for quite some time. They do a number on him, and then Duggan is out. I mean, he's gone for a few weeks, injured, as was said, injured. Apparently, through some of the other shows, he must have went to Florida for a while. They probably wanted to try to get him off the show for a few weeks to allow others to get on. After that, Bill Watson, hey, Jerry Stubbs. I saw you at this earlier. I was watching some 1983 Mid-South. I saw you on there, you and Ted DiBiase. The show continues. They're still pushing the Midnight Express versus Magnum T and Wrestling 2, and they're showing the tar and feathering. They're showing the whipping. And I can remember, and Jerry, I'm sure you were there at the same time. We were in Southeastern. We were going to Memphis, to Mobile, and we would go there on Tuesday night to Expo Hall. And a lot of people there were talking about everything that was going on in Biloxi, because Mid-South was in Biloxi at the Mississippi Coast Coliseum. And the fans were just on fire. Dad had the opportunity to talk to Bill on several occasions. Bill said, "You got to come over here. You got to come over here." And Dad, right now, at that point, me and Brent, we're still in school. So it's hard to yank us out of school yet again and move. We just got there. And so, but the place was really, really hot, and everybody was talking about TA and 2 in the midnight and Junkyard Dog and even all the way over to Mobile. And then, of course, as we continue, Terry Taylor and Bill talked about the videos last week as being an important tool to get wrestlers over, and they were, absolutely. And so important that he decided that not only was going to do just the ones that were coming in, but he was going to do on established people. We had the freeze frame video, and I'm sure a lot of you who watch Mid-South saw that several times with Terry Taylor, and then the Sweet Dreams with Magnum TA. And then later on, another one with Butch Reed. So Bill definitely wanted to put it. It was what was going on in the culture, pretty much, with MTV being at that point at its height. And of course, another one with the Rock and Roll Express comes up. Then the first TV title match: Terry Taylor versus Buddy Landale. What a tremendous match! Buddy and Terry just put it on, both undefeated. In the end, Terry Taylor wins with the flying forearm, and he would advance into the Mid-South television tournament. As we look at the situation with the Mid-South, and I was thinking about it today, of how many of the people in 1984 moved on and were humongous. I mean, this was basically their first big time break. I'm talking about the Midnight Express, Dennis and Bobby with Jim Cornette together. Look at what happens. They go to World Class, and then they go to work for Jim Crockett Promotions later on. Big, huge success. Rock and Roll Express, they left from there. Big, huge success there. Going to work with Jim Crockett Promotion, World Tag Team Champions. And I mean, if you want to see somebody and see the result of how over they were, check out some of those from Jim Crockett from Charlotte and Greensboro and Atlanta. Tremendous ovation. And just to think, it really, I mean, it started in Jarrett's promotion, but really was perfected with Mid-South Wrestling. You have to say that. Magnum TA was huge. And then probably one of the biggest, and he started in 1984 doing commentary, and I'm talking about Jim Ross. No better commentator anywhere. No better commentator anywhere. As we continue, we move to the next week, and this time the Junkyard Dog is going to be in the commentary with Boyd Pierce. I love Boyd Pierce. He was a great announcer. Wait a minute. There's I see another Rodney West there. I am the original Rodney West, I think. I think, well, one of the, yeah, there he is. So I'm seeing my name. That's me, though. Wait a minute. No, that is the person posing as me. By the way, I've got some bills that I think this belongs to you. I'll get them to you. And thank you for coming on. All right, Jordan Cumbersling, can I personally attest of how good Robert Gibson is? He trained me. Excellent, absolutely. And Robert really was one of the best, no doubt about it. He and Ricky jailed as no other. And this begins the concept of, especially in the Mid-South, of specializing. These are tag team specialists. The Rock and Roll Express was one, Midnight Express was the other. And I remember Bill Watts talking on the show about these are tag team specialists, and they don't really wrestle in any other way, especially in the Mid-South. But Robert Gibson, pretty good, no doubt about it. But as we continue, Midnight Express still on the roll, and this is where Jim Cornette. This is the on the 9th, February 9th of 1984. This is where Jim Cornette begins to talk about Bill Watts. And that's leading to probably one of the most famous slaps that's ever been seen on television. between Bill Watts and Jim Cornette. Cornette upset about what Bill Watts is talking about, how he's been running his mother down, talking about him. I mean, it was pretty intense and sometimes. But yeah, these tremendous times with the and with Jim Cornette, and you have to admit, you have to think about this. Cornette really was playing second banana to Jimmy Hart. Really, he was playing second banana to Jimmy Hart in Memphis and for Jarrett Promotions. And this really is the first time he is featured. And you got to know he's got to be proud. Absolutely proud of the accomplishment. Eric Collier, Mid-South was one of a kind. We miss it dearly. So do I. Never, and I've said it before, never has there been a better wrestling TV show, wrestling company. It was just, yes, I'm the original, I'm older. Okay. All right. We will accept that. All right. Well, Mr. Rodney, fine name, though. Fine name, and I'll give that to you. In that I'm only like 26. Okay, but anyway, we will continue. Don't look at that. Don't look at that, people. It's not important. Not important. But like I said, yeah, Mid-South, tremendous organization. When we went there, vastly different than what we've ever seen. And like I said, Bill said that he was trying to pattern it after Jarrett Promotions. And in fact, I think really it went above Jarrett Promotions in many aspects. I remember going to the arenas, just extraordinary, and finally seeing these big, huge souvenir stands with all kinds of merchandise. And we had the opportunity to sell some of that. And I mean, we were taking the money in as fast as we can hand it out. I mean, they were throwing it at us, trying to get souvenirs of T-shirts and Rock and Roll Express bandanas and I'm a Wimp shirts with Jim Cornette. I mean, it was huge. It was absolutely huge. We made good money when we were selling souvenirs in Mid-South. Then we get back to as we get back to the show, Masito Ito was still there, and he was against Lanny Poffo. What a tremendous match! And again, Lanny Poffo, tremendous wrestler, tremendous performer. And this time, Ito was going after the leg, and really, you watch that match, you could see Lanny Poffo was outstanding, just really outstanding. In the end, it was Ito going over with that kick to the throat. We didn't use the claw this time. Not sure why. Of course, if Bill was here, we could ask that question. Maybe they were moving away to some other things. Next match, Wrestling 2. It gets Larry Santana. I don't know if any of you know Larry. Larry from around here, pretty decent wrestler, and he was going against Mr. Wrestling 2. Junkyard Dog again commentating at the set. Midnight Express in the ring, and then they were out there. They're trying to take Wrestling 2's mask off. Junkyard Dog had enough, and remember, $2,500 for leaving the ring, getting in the ring when you're on the doing the commentary. And he was in there. He said, I can't sit and watch this happen. And they come, and I mean, they clean house. Magnum TA comes out, Midnight's out. And while this is happening, Crusher Darso comes in and rams Magnum TA into the post. He gets busted up. And later on in the show, Mid-South Television Tournament match, Magnum TA. And will be later on in the match. Then we have a great interview with the Junkyard Dog. I mean, nobody over more than the Junkyard Dog, really. I mean, seriously, people. I mean, this was fantastic. Absolutely. Yesterday was Big Cowboy's birthday. He was a wrestling genius. Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember even in Georgia, of course, he owned part of Georgia Championship Wrestling. And when they were kind of in a kind of a repetitive way, they would send the last three TV shows to Bill Watts, and he would sit there and he would refigure everything. And then we would take care of the TV show for the next week and normally set the pace for the next 3 to 4 months. I mean, Watts, he knew exactly what he was doing. Really, he was fantastic, really fantastic. But again, I jumped ahead there. It's Junkyard Dog was doing the interview, and of course the Russians are back out. Volkov and Darso trying to double up. Magnum TA and 2's out, and this time it was Ito, who's been this claw to the throat, he's been using it for quite some time, and this time he puts it on the Junkyard Dog. Now, part of the shows when you're watching the shows on YouTube, and that's what I've been watching as well, try to refresh my memory to the time. You will notice some things are missing, and that's the interviews for the upcoming events. And those are very important because in those interviews, you're seeing the matches being made, such as, Midnight Express versus the Wrestling 2 and Magnum TA with the 5 lashes. You'll see the football helmet on the pole matches. You'll see, Russian death matches and this kind of thing. And in this case, you're not seeing that. In fact, I think they've re-edited it to the point where they're not even calling for you to see, stay tuned more from right now from word from the Mid-South Television Network. And then that's where you would hear what was going on in your local town. And we have to remember, Mid-South contained cities in Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and then also in the part around Houston, Beaumont. Just a huge area. And big towns, big town. Let's say, yeah. It was amazing the way that they taped were bicycle in different areas in the territory, and the fact they were remembered what to do in each area for the live events. Yeah, that was one of the things I talked to Bill Dundee about, and that was the thing we noticed when we first got there. And I asked him how hard it was to keep up with who was who, and in fact, and sometimes by the time the TV played, the wrestlers were gone. I mean, it was something, and finally Bill Dundee was able to talk Watts into catching them all up, so they all played at the same time. And that was one of his big bugaboos when he first got there. I said, we got to catch these tapes up, because by the time, lots of times by the time it shows, hey, those people are gone or we've moved on to something else. Right about now, Volkov's been doing the national anthem, the Russian national anthem. And this is the week it finally catches on. And the people start really getting on him for doing the Russian national anthem. And again, it was just that repetitive. Finally, people catching on. And it really, and the thing about it is he just kept doing it. Wherever he went, he still sung the Russian national anthem. Absolutely fantastic. Reed and Jim the Anvil Neidhart's, they're continuing with their situation. And then we come up to the February the 16th event. This would be a difficult show at the beginning, because this is the show where they announced the passing of David Von Erich. Bill Watts was not there for that particular taping. Apparently he was in Dallas for the funeral for that particular show, and it was right at the beginning. Very sad day for wrestling. Very sad day for the Von Erich family. I remember it when we heard when he passed away in Japan. This particular show, I mean, things are really starting to heat up. We're getting ready to go into the Superdome Wrestling Extravaganza, so things really start getting interesting right about now. And this is the time where 2 and TA, still the Mid-South Tag Team Champions, still working together well, as we heard from Bill Dundee last week, even behind the scenes, not getting along, arguing. So seemed natural maybe that they would finally clash. In this particular one, this was the interview at the UNO Lakefront Arena. Bill Watts was talking to the Junkyard Dog. TA and 2 were getting ready for their matches. And when Grizzly Smith came in, and this is the beginning of the end for Wrestling 2 and Magnum TA, setting them on a collision course when Magnum TA was announced as being the #1 contender. What, if you haven't seen it, what a great interview Wrestling 2 did. They asked him, well, what do you think about Magnum TA being the #1 contender? He said, well, that stinks. That stinks. And he said, why would you? He said, well, what do you say that stinks for? I said, this man can't beat the Junkyard Dog. I can beat the Junkyard Dog. The only reason, and then Dog's perfectly all right with wrestling, because look, he can beat him. He can beat him. He can't beat me. He knows he can't beat me. And he won't wrestle me. I challenged him. He won't wrestle me because he wants the opportunity, when he gets beat, to come on here, if it's against Volkov or something like that, talk about how he was cheated. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And again, sets the stage for what's coming up with Wrestling 2 and Magnum TA. And I'm going to tell you, when you finally see, if you haven't had a chance to see this, ladies and gentlemen, it's brilliant. And Wrestling 2 is just outstanding. Really, really outstanding. Then we get to the tag team tournament. We get to the tournament match, Junkyard Dog versus Volkov. And this is a television tournament match. Darso's right there with him. And they tried to sneak in the noose, the rope. Terry Taylor's there. He snatches it from Volkov. And I'm going to tell you, probably the shortest match Volkov's ever had. Junkyard Dog picks him up. Gigantic thump. It was over. 1, 2, 3. Junkyard Dog advances in the television tournament. Again, Junkyard Dog, tremendously over like no other. I mean, if in the Mid-South, he was the Hulk Hogan. I mean, seriously, he was the Hulk Hogan. He was the John Cena. He was the Rock, Steve Austin. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. In fact, I believe Jerry can attest to the fact of just how over the Junkyard Dog was. In fact, I think he did in his interview. We continue, and then comes the humongous payoff. All the videos of the Rock and Roll Express, they show one more video of the Rock and Roll Express, and then live, right in the studio, right in the Irish McNeil Bullets Club, the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Moore and Robert Gibson make their first appearance, and the crowd goes wild. I mean, it paid off. I could just imagine how proud Bill was to see that his idea, that his technique, his tool, his way of doing things got over. And I mean, before they even got there, the crowd witnessed. The girls were up, they were dancing. It was spectacular. And in this match, they went against, from right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, good old Pat Rose. Pat Rose was in the match, along with Del Vesey. Del Vesey, tremendous wrestler as well. So is Pat Rose. And a tremendous match. And of course, getting that trademark double drop kick over. Fantastic. Absolutely. Absolutely fantastic. Again, in these matches, and I think we have to take our hats off to Bill Watts. He insisted that there will be no mismatches on his show. In fact, he said it repeatedly while he was doing commentary, that we just do not have mismatches on here. And again, very capable wrestlers, Pat Rose and Del Vesey against Rock and Roll in that match. And then, first time ever, we see the first appearance of the team of Butch Reed and Buddy Landau. Well, what can you say about that? That's just classic, absolute classic matches. Again, and for whatever reason, and I could never figure it out, even when we were there, we couldn't figure out why they talk about football a lot. They talked about football a lot during the shows. I'm not sure if they think that gave it more credibility or what, but yeah, they were taking TV time to talk about football players that never will appear on TV or in any house show. Never did quite understand that. Maybe we can get them to explain that one day. Then comes to the end. We're coming up on the 23rd February. And again, things are really, really, really heating up. And again, like I said, Bill was insistent on doing these videos. He thought that they were very important, and he was right. He absolutely was right in helping getting people over. Magnum TA and the Sweet Dreams video. And then comes the big match, the big signing for the North American Heavyweight Championship. It was Magnum TA, Junkyard Dog, Wrestling 2, Grizzly Smith, Jim Ross. And this is where Wrestling 2 slaps Magnum TA. Absolutely. Absolutely. Just brilliant. Let's see. I still say they should have placed the statue of the JYD in Armstrong Park near Municipal Auditorium, since he was in that house the dog built. Absolutely. Could very well be. I mean, Junkyard Dog, for all practical purposes, like I said, it was absolutely huge. In fact, when we were riding, and I can't remember whether it was Baton Rouge or it was near Lafayette, maybe it was near New Orleans, but we would drive by, and a high school football team was called, or high school teams were called the Junkyard Dogs. Just amazing. Absolutely. I mean, that just shows you just how over he was. And just tremendous, tremendous wrestler. Well, not only that, later on when Jake the Snake Roberts is there, and I mean, he, if you haven't seen it yet, we'll be covering that in later ones. When he and the Barbarian was against Ted DiBiase and Dr. Death Steve Williams, and the DDT was over like a son of a gun. And everybody knows that with Jake Roberts. And we would go by these high schools, and they would have the big banner saying DDT, whatever opposing team that they were going against. absolutely tremendous. Part of the culture, really a part of the culture of the time, especially in the area. And that's just not there. That was across the board. That was wherever, Georgia. That was in Alabama. In case Mitch talked about it many times. Even his high school teacher would come in and talk about wrestling on when they come back on Monday. Just a tremendous time. Then, of course, like I said, we were talking about the big signing for the North American Championship, and this is where Two was not having any of it. He slaps Magnum TA again, insults the Junkyard Dog by saying, you know you can beat him, but you can't beat me. And you know it's not going to be any other kind of match. It's not going to be one of those where you come on here and you can cry about somebody cheated you, because you know I can out wrestle you. And so TA upset about the situation, tears up the contract, refuses to take the match. And of course, Two at that point challenged the Junkyard Dog, says, I will put my mask up against the North American Championship, and then I will leave. Not only will I put my mask up, I'll take it off, and I'll leave if you beat me. And we will see what happens in that later on. Of course, I'm sure all of you already know that later on, full house, absolutely, at the Municipal Auditorium in New Orleans when Wrestling 2 against Junkyard Dog. And Wrestling 2, he used a little trick, but he beat the Junkyard Dog, and the dog was gone for 90 days. So, like I said, everything really, really heating up. Midnight Express on the roll. I mean, just on the roll. Cornette still on Bill Watts, making sure you don't talk about me. You don't talk about my mother. And he had been, Bill Watts had been. And I think that's a testament because of what's going to happen later. Bill Watts willing to wrestle against, quote, his smaller people. I think he seen the value in Dennis and Bobby and Jim Cornette, and absolutely extraordinary. We'll see that as it comes up. Again, we end up with Reed and Landale, tremendous team, and getting ready. Let's see, we got Jordan. He said, I mean, when you have fans in the Superdome jumping in the ring and crouching next to you and pulling out a gun on Michael Hayes, you might be over. Yeah, I think so. Junkyard Dog, absolutely. Tremendous wrestler. And really, when you watch that interview that I was talking about earlier, you can see why. He was just down to earth. He spoke directly to people. It wasn't this flashy commentary, but he just spoke like a regular person, like you or me or whatever would speak. Nothing flashy. He said, Terry, I worked with JYD in Rome, Georgia for Ted Allen, and that headbutt was no joke. Nope. No, and he was no joke either. You need to ask Lex Luger what happens to you if you run your mouth to the Junkyard Dog. You'll end up with thumb in your eye. That's exactly what you'll end up there. Like I said, Junkyard Dog, tremendous wrestler, and it was a great loss to Mid-South. In fact, to the point where Bill Watts was really just wanted a replacement. And he tried desperately to try to find a replacement for the Junkyard Dog. And let's just be honest, that never happened. It didn't happen with George Wells or Brickhouse Brown. And even when they turned Brooks Reed, it never, because honestly, ladies and gentlemen, lots of this stuff that takes place and these people who get over, it's just once in a lifetime. And it really never can be done again. It's just once in a lifetime. So, as we continue, then we come up with the tournament, and then again, Reed using again that football helmet, which leads to a huge thing like I said, and then I asked last time Bill Dundee about Jim Neidhart if he was on his way out, if he actually asked to be given his notice, or he just told him he was leaving. I would assume if anybody was seeing the growth of the company, I would assume that he was given his notice, if you want to know honest truth about that. Again, Reed with that football helmet. And, of course, leading to those big matches with the football helmet on the pole match, similar to a coal miner's glove match. Absolutely tremendous. And then we have the Rock and Roll Express. They come back. And, again, just like I said, Bill done his job and people are ready. And then we have Darsow versus Mike Jackson. I'm not sure if any of you remember this. This is the match where Terry Taylor and the Rock and Roll Express come out and paint Darsow. He thought he wants to be a pinko commie. Well, they let him be a pinko commie, and all four of the Rock and Roll Express and Mike Jackson hold Darso down, and they painted him. Volkov was out. Too late. He's already painted. You would think, though, later on when Terry Taylor finally gets his, you kind of think, you know, you might have deserved it. You might have deserved it. Later, then you have the match with then we really spice up with Terry Taylor with the rock and roll there, and I think that was as Bill said last week, that was his key. He wanted to draw the girls in and the kids. Rock and Roll Express did that. Terry Taylor did that, and they did that extraordinarily well. Not only that, with Magnum TA, who was already established, and then getting ready for the big one. And it's coming, the next show, and that brings us to March. And what a tremendous time as we get ready. March, you talk about March to WrestleMania, nothing like the March to the Superdome, man. I'm going to tell you, it was big. And like I said, I sit and I watch these shows. I actually watched six in a row. I just binge watched 6 in a row. These are just classics, absolute classics. And if you haven't seen it, you really need to. And then my hat's off to Bill Dundee and Jim Cornette, Dennis Condrey, Bobby Eaton, Rock and Roll Express, all of them. Jim Ross, most of all, Bill Watts, because he had the vision to go across the border into Tennessee and ask Jerry Jarrett for help. And you can't begrudge him for that. And it was quite a feat for him in that. Let's see here. Let's see what we got. When the Rock and Roll and Terry Taylor and those guys came out in those demographics, yeah, absolutely. It actually not changed it, expanded it. Really expanded those people who were there didn't leave. They were still there because their favorites were still there. You know, the Junkyard Dog and Wrestling 2 and Magnum TA and Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Butch Reed, they were all still there. So they didn't alienate one group just to get another. They just expanded the demographic, which is important, which I think a lot of wrestling today is aimed at a single demographic and not try to cater to all demographics, which you should try to do to expand to have the biggest audience that you possibly can have. Well, at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I think we should, we're going to call it a night, I think, from here, because we're going to cover March, and the next week we're going to be talking about the big one. I'm talking about the big party with the Midnight Express, Jim Cornette, Bill Watts, the giant slap heard around the world, and then the follow-up to that the very next week, and we'll cover that and a whole lot more right here on Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. Remind you, tomorrow, Continental Championship Wrestling tomorrow night with Brent and Mitch. They'll be covering it all, and that was 1986, another banner year for professional wrestling. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to thank each and every one of you. Wait, Eric has something he wants to say here. There's no wrestling today. I see that, and yeah, I agree with, because we talked about that last night, talking about the difference between sports entertainment and professional wrestling. And right, professional wrestling is not here anymore. Welcome to the error of sports entertainment. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you very much for being with us here tonight and being a part of the show. Hopefully you'll join us again next week. And we thank you very much. I'm Rodney West, and we'll see you on the next Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.